She laughed, right at the ring my fiancé spent 8 months saving up for. Not a little giggle, not an awkward chuckle she tried to hide. A full, genuine laugh. And then she said, "Oh, honey, that's a sapphire? I mean, it's sweet. It's very dot modest." And I just stood there, completely frozen, staring at my phone screen, not knowing what to say, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to even process what had just happened. But my fiancé, he knew exactly what to say, and what came out of his mouth that day changed everything. Not just between him and my mother, but between me and the version of myself that had spent years quietly accepting things she never should have accepted. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, I am so glad you found this video today, because this story is one I have been wanting to share for a long time. And I think a lot of you are going to feel this one deeply. And if you have been here for a while, you already know that we don't sugarcoat anything on this channel. We tell it straight, we tell it honest, and we tell it with all the messy, complicated, emotional details that make these stories real. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, because we are going in. Before I tell you what happened, let me take a few minutes to introduce you to the people in this story, because context is everything here. And you need to understand who these people are before any of this will make sense. So first, there is me. My name is Maya. I am 27 years old. I work as a graphic designer. I live in a small apartment that I have worked really hard to make feel like home. And I have been with my fiancé Daniel for almost 4 years. Now let me tell you about Daniel, because Daniel is the kind of person that I genuinely did not believe existed before I met him. He grew up in a working-class family. His parents did not have a lot. They struggled for most of his childhood, but they raised him with values that most people who grow up with money never actually learn. Things like integrity, patience, consistency, showing up for the people you love without keeping score, and without expecting anything in return. Daniel is not flashy. He does not drive an expensive car, or wear designer clothes, or post his life on social media to impress people. But he is present in a way that I have never experienced with anyone else. He remembers the small things. He follows through on what he says. He is the kind of man who will drive 45 minutes at midnight, just because you had a terrible day, and you didn't want to be alone, and he will do it without making you feel like you owe him anything for it. He is steady, and I think that is the word I would use above everything else to describe Daniel: steady. Now, my mother is a different story, and I want to be very clear before I say anything else. I love my mother. I love her genuinely and completely. And nothing I am about to tell you changes that. But my mother grew up in a family where appearances were everything. Everything. The right neighborhood. The right clothes. The right schools. The right husband. And by right, I mean the one with the most impressive title and the biggest ring. Image was not just important in her world growing up. It was the currency that everything else was measured in. And over the years, that way of seeing the world became deeply, deeply embedded in how she moves through life, and how she relates to the people around her. She has always had strong opinions. She has always had this habit of making little comments about my apartment being too small, about my career not being prestigious enough, about choices I made that she thought were not refined enough, or impressive enough, or whatever enough. And for years I let it go. I told myself it was just how she was. I told myself she meant well. She just expressed it badly. I made peace with it. It was just mum being mum. But then Daniel proposed. And everything changed. Daniel proposed on a Thursday evening in November. And it was the most perfectly, beautifully simple proposal I could have ever imagined. There was no big public spectacle. No restaurant full of strangers staring at us. No flash mob, no helicopter, none of that. And I say that not to put down people who love those things. I say it because knowing Daniel, knowing who he is and how he loves, the absence of all of that was what made it so exactly right. He took me to the park where we had our very first real date 3.5 years earlier. It is this quiet, tucked away little park with old oak trees and a small pond and wooden benches that have been there for decades. Nothing fancy about it, but it was ours. When we got there that evening, I noticed he had strung fairy lights between 2 of the oak trees. He had gone there hours earlier in the afternoon to set everything up without telling me. He had a blanket laid out on the grass and 2 thermoses of hot chocolate sitting on it. And when I turned around to ask him what was going on, he was already on one knee. I was crying before he even finished his sentence. I genuinely do not remember the exact words he used. I just remember his face. The way he looked at me. Like I was the only thing in the entire world that mattered in that moment. The ring was a simple oval-cut white sapphire set on a delicate gold band. It was beautiful, understated and elegant in the quietest way. Exactly my style. Exactly me. He told me later that he had spent 8 months saving up for it. Exactly my style. Exactly me. He told me later that he had spent 8 months saving up for it. Every single paycheck, he set money aside into a separate account that he did not touch. He brought his lunch to work every single day instead of going out. He skipped weekend trips with his friends. He said no to things he wanted to do because he was working towards something more important. 8 months of quiet, unglamorous sacrifice. Because he wanted to buy that ring outright. No payment plan. No credit card. No debt. Just here, I earned this. This is for you. You are worth every single thing it cost me to get here. I said yes. Immediately. Without hesitation. I called my best friend screaming. I called my sister. I was completely floating. And then I called my mom. She answered on the second ring and I told her, "Mum, Daniel proposed." I said yes. And said, "Oh my goodness. Let me see the ring. Let me see it." So I switched to video and I held up my hand and I was smiling so hard my face hurt. And my mother looked at the ring. And she laughed. I need you to sit with that for a second. Because I want you to really understand what I mean when I say she laughed. I do not mean she made an awkward sound. I do not mean she had a nervous reaction she could not control. She laughed. A real, genuine, "This is funny" laugh. And then she said, and I am quoting her word for word. She said, "Oh honey, that is a sapphire. I mean, it is sweet. It is very modest." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. The smile was gone from my face in an instant. But she kept going. She said, "I just hope people do not think he could not afford a real diamond. You know how people talk. Maybe down the line for your first anniversary, you could quietly suggest something a little more significant. I'm sure he would understand." I could not speak. I could not form a single word. I just said I have to go and I hung up. Daniel was sitting right next to me on the couch. He had been there the whole time. He heard every single word she said. And I turned to look at him and I did not know what to say. I just felt this horrible, suffocating mix of humiliation and heartbreak and guilt. Guilt that my mother had just done that. That she had laughed at something he had worked 8 months for. That she had sat there and suggested it was not good enough. That he was not good enough. That the most thoughtful and intentional thing anyone had ever done for me was somehow something to be embarrassed about. I started to say, "Daniel, I am so sorry, she just..." And he put his hand up gently and said, "Please don't apologize for her. Can I say something?" He sat down next to me, and he held my hand, and he was calm. Not cold, not shut down. Not the kind of calm that is really anger wearing a mask. Just steady. The way he always is. And he said, I have watched your mother make comments to you for years. Little digs about your job and your apartment and your choices. And every single time I let it go. Because I thought it was your family and your call to handle. And it was not my place to step in. But this is different. This is not a little comment at a family dinner that I can let slide. This is her sitting there watching a moment I spent 8 months working toward. A moment I built for you. And laughing at it. And then suggesting you ask me to replace it. That is not a thoughtless comment. That is something else entirely. And so I need to tell you where I stand. Not to give you an ultimatum, because this is your family and your relationship with her. And I am not going to try to control that. But because you deserve to know exactly where I am, before you make any choices going forward. Until your mother gives us both a genuine, sincere apology, I will not be attending family events. Not dinners. Not holidays. Not our engagement party. And if that apology has not happened by the time we are ready to set a wedding date, then she will not be at our wedding. I want to be clear. I am not angry and I am not doing this to punish her or to make your life harder. I am doing this because I need to show you and show myself and show her that this relationship that we are building together begins with respect. And right now that respect is not there. He stopped talking. The apartment was completely silent, and I just sat there staring at him. And then I started to cry. And I need you to understand that these were not tears of sadness, or fear, or feeling overwhelmed. These were the tears that come when something shifts inside of you. When you realize something you did not know before. Because in that moment, sitting there on that couch, I understood something clearly for the first time. No one had ever defended me like that before. Not loudly. Not out of anger or pride. But deliberately. Quietly. Thoughtfully. Like I was worth the effort it took to think it through and say it out loud. I had spent years minimizing my mother's comments. Years telling myself it was fine. It was just how she was. It was not worth making a thing out of. Years shrinking a little every time she made one of those digs and then telling myself I was fine when I was not. And here was this man, calm and steady as always, telling me quietly that I did not have to keep doing that. That I was worth more than that. That he saw it even when I had stopped seeing it myself. My mother found out about what Daniel said within 24 hours. I did not even have to be the one to call her. My sister, who had heard the whole story and was absolutely furious on my behalf, called her first. My mum called me the next morning, and the conversation was not good. She went through every angle you can possibly imagine. First, she tried the honesty angle. I was just being honest. I was only trying to protect you. I did not want people to judge you. Then she tried the sensitivity angle. He is completely overreacting. A confident man would not care what I think. This is ridiculous. Then she went for the guilt angle, which honestly was the one I expected most. I am your mother. I should have the right to be at my own daughter's wedding. Nothing should be able to take that away from me. And I told her, and I kept my voice calm because I have thought about what I wanted to say, and I did not want to have this conversation in anger. I told her, Mum, you laughed at my engagement ring. You laughed at it, in front of me, while my fiancé was sitting right there. You insulted a moment he spent 8 months working toward. And then you suggested I ask him to replace it. Daniel did not threaten you. He told me where he stands. And honestly, Mum, I stand there too. And when you are ready to apologize, genuinely, not because you are worried about missing the wedding, but because you actually understand what you did, I will be here. She hung up. For 3 weeks I heard nothing directly from her. But I heard plenty from everyone around her. My aunt sent me a long text telling me I was letting a man control me and turn me against my own family. My cousin called Daniel disrespectful and out of line. 2 different relatives told me I was blowing the whole thing completely out of proportion over a ring. And through all of it, Daniel never wavered. He never got defensive when I told him what people were saying. He never pressured me or checked in to make sure I was still on his side. He just kept showing up, the same as always, steady and present and exactly himself. Then, 4 weeks after that phone call, my mother showed up at my apartment. No text, no warning, just a knock at the door. I stood there with my hand on the doorknob for a long moment, just breathing, and then I opened it. She came inside and she sat down on my couch and she was different. I noticed it immediately. She was quieter, smaller somehow. She did not launch into a speech or start defending herself or try to take control of the room the way she usually would. She just sat there for a moment, looking down at her hands. And then she looked up at me and she said, "I think I have spent so much of my life caring about how things look that I forgot to pay attention to what they actually are. Your ring is beautiful, not because of what it cost or what it looks like to other people, but because of what it means and because of what it says about the man who gave it to you. A man who spent 8 months quietly working and saving and sacrificing because he wanted to give you one perfect moment." I did not see that. I was so locked into how things look from the outside that I completely missed what was right in front of me. I hurt you, and I hurt someone who loves you deeply and genuinely. And I'm sorry. I am truly, genuinely sorry. I cried. I am not going to pretend I did not, because I know my mother. I know how she was raised. I know how hard those words are for her to say. And that was real. The most real thing she had said to me in a very long time. She called Daniel that same evening and she apologized to him directly. No qualifiers. No explanations. Just a genuine apology from one person to another. He thanked her for making the call. He told her it took courage. He meant every single word of it. And when he got off the phone he came and found me, and he said, "That took a lot for her to do. I have a lot of respect for her for doing it. That is who he is." So here is what I want to leave you with, because I do not think this story is really about a ring. The ring is just where it started. What this story is actually about is what we accept and what we decide. At some point we are no longer willing to accept. My mother did not lose everything. She came to our engagement party. She will walk into our wedding. But what her own behavior almost cost her was her relationship with me. And I think somewhere underneath all of it, she knew that. She felt it. And that is what finally moved her. What Daniel did was not controlling. He did not tell me what to do, or who to cut off, or how to handle my own family. He told me the truth about where he stood, and then he stepped back and let me make my own choices with that information. He trusted me. That is what love that actually respects you looks like. It does not make decisions for you. It just makes sure you have everything you need to make them for yourself. And I think the other thing I want to say is this. If you have someone in your life who quietly minimizes you, who makes little comments that you have learned to brush off, who has trained you to accept less than you deserve, because it is easier than the alternative, please hear this. You are allowed to stop accepting it. You are allowed to decide that respect is not optional. You are allowed to have someone in your corner who sees what is happening, even when you have stopped seeing it yourself. My ring is still the same simple white sapphire on a delicate gold band. And every single time I look at it, I do not think about carats or diamonds, or what anyone at a dinner party might think. I think about fairy lights strung between 2 oak trees on a cold November evening. I think about thermoses of hot chocolate and a blanket on the grass. I think about a man on his knee who spent 8 months proving in the quietest, most unglamorous, most genuine way possible that I was worth it. And I think, without any doubt at all, I chose right. If this story hit you somewhere, leave me a comment below. I read every single one and I would genuinely love to hear your thoughts. If you know someone who needs to hear something in this video today, share it with them. And if you are new here and you want more stories like this, hit subscribe because there is so much more coming. I will see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves.